I was about to head to work, and I was thinking about something that happened yesterday morning and thought it would make a good video subject, because I know a lot of you have dealt with being misgendered over the phone, and it's usually, I'm talking about when you're calling a customer service place, which, we have to do, unfortunately. I hate talking on the phone in general. So anytime there's a form or chat, or you can just that's how everything should be like that. But for those of us who hate talking on the phone, that helps. But then also for those of us who get misgendered over the phone, that would be, it's an additional anxiety and a stress. And so what I mean by that is when we call up a place and the person on the other side of the phone makes an assumption of our gender based on the voice that they hear, and then they misgender us. So for instance, yesterday I made 3 phone calls because I just recently changed my bank, and I need to change, obviously with all the places that I am charged automatically every month for stuff, I need to change my bank account information. So the first thing I did, which was like 2 weeks ago, is every place that had an option online to change it, I did that. And I have put this off for 2 weeks, but now the dates are coming up, and I need to go ahead and call these places and get it figured out. And so one thing I learned from this is that if you have to go through something like this because you're changing your address, you're changing your name, gender marker, and you have to call up places, try to only do one at a time, 1 per day. Again, if it's online, easy peasy, but if you actually have to talk to someone, try not to cluster it like I did. I know I meant well, I was going to just try to get it all done, but what happened is that I got really stacked. The first phone call, the person on the other side of the phone called me either Miss Hoffman Fox or ma'am, I can't remember which one, right away. And I always prepare myself ahead of time before I make one of those calls. What am I going to do? It doesn't mean it didn't feel flustering when it happened, but I said, and I still am trying to figure out my wording for it, but I said, actually, my gender is not female. Could you please refer to me as Dara? That person picked up on it right away. So it's like, ooh, the feeling came up, and then it kind of went, ooh, it comes down, but it doesn't go all the way back down to like how I was before the call. It's there. Second phone call, the person didn't gender me at all, which was great. So I kind of was like, oh, nice. It just kind of stayed there. Third phone call, awful. And because I got transferred 3 times, and each person either said, sometimes they said Miss Dara, or Miss Hoffman Fox, or ma'am. And so every time I got transferred, it happened again. And then with the third person who was on the phone the longest, I said, my gender is not female. Could you please just call me Dara? The person, apologized and said, sure. And then they just kept doing it. And there was also frustration involved with me changing my bank account information, that we were having a miscommunication about that. And I was just like, it went like this, and then I was just up here. I know I was probably being a little curt, and I'm sure I sounded frustrated, but I just couldn't, it was just very difficult to manage that. And so that really sucked. And you just never know when you're going to call a place. Is it going to be you won't be misgendered, or they get it pretty quick, you don't have to repeat yourself, or the person, and again, I know customer service people, they don't mean it maliciously. There's cultural differences, there's and I mean that within the United States and outside the United States, in terms of how people are raised to be respectful to other people. And it's very new for us to be talking about, hey, when you say sir and ma'am, maybe that's respectful in certain communities, but you just never know when you're misgendering somebody. And it's time to have that conversation about how you can just use gender neutral language in these circumstances. And so what I decided to do and I've done this before, is because that particular phone call was particularly upsetting. I did message the company to let them know what happened, and they wrote back and just said, "We promise you, we are I don't know, we are listening." Something really generic. So I wrote back and again, I said, "I would love to hear what it is you're going to do specifically." And that's the thing, is that I'm trying to think if there's something like a worksheet or a PDF that I can create that I can offer to send to places to say, look, here's just one page in which I discuss options to using ma'am and sir, and why it would be so important for you to do this for customers. I mean, there's people who are cisgender who get misgendered over the phone, like, and it just doesn't feel good no matter what, and it just makes the whole conversation already, which is already nerve-wracking, it just makes it worse. And I am like, this hasn't happened for a while, but it wrecked me for a couple of hours. And when I say it wrecked me, after these 3 phone calls that I had to make, I just was very agitated, and it was hard for me to focus on getting any work done. And so because of that, I recognized that was happening. And so I did things that helped me relax. I took a shower. I just went through the rest of my morning routine. I made my lunch. I went to a coffee shop and sat there and worked for a bit. And then by the time I had done all of that, I was able, like, I was back to my normal self, in terms of feeling not just like triggered, I guess, by the situation. So this video was a little bit of me just kind of sharing what happened, just so we can empathize with one another and have compassion for each other as we're going through this. Threw in there a couple ideas about maybe what can be done to help, do at the beginning of the conversation. Should I say, before we begin, I just want to let you know that terms such as miss and ma'am are ones that do not apply to me because I'm not female. And that's always hard as a non-binary person, because then that person, they might be like, "Oh, no problem, sir." And then you're like, So trying to figure out the right way to explain that short and sweet, so it's not a big deal, so we can move on. And then it doesn't become like a big educational process as well. Put some thoughts below about this, whether it's like what you've been through, maybe ideas that you've had before. And again, I know that I've worked in customer service. I understand, like, you're just trying to give good customer service. I know there is not any kind of malicious intent. So what do we do? How do we find a way to go about this so that they don't feel criticized or shamed, and that we can also feel like we are being taken for who we truly are in those moments. So thanks for listening. I do feel like I was venting, and I feel better now that I was venting to y'all. So we'll talk again soon.